I'm Katie from Foden Property. And I'm Jenny from Foden Property. And we thought we'd perhaps do a little podcast discussing how the year started out. Coming into the back end of last year, the market was a little bit turbulent, a bit unknown, a bit, how would you describe it?
Slow. It was a little bit slow. I think 2023 as a whole really was a little bit of a shakedown year after the 3 years of craziness and price lifts. 2023 kind of had a little bit of shakedown in the market, and we were a little unsure what we were coming back to, weren't we, in 2024?
Absolutely right. So we thought we'd just kind of give you a bit of an oversight of how we found things so far. So I think very briefly we'll touch on the letting side of things, just because that's kind of more straightforward, I think, probably. The letting market is continuing to boom. The rental prices are continuing to rise. The letting market feels like it's contracting in terms of available properties.
Definitely, just not enough stock at all.
It's still very volatile from that point of view, and it's very difficult still for tenants. We're seeing a lot of landlords selling. So which is obviously going to impact the rental market.
Trying to sell. That's the other impact, because of course landlords trying to sell with tenants in situ is not easy at the moment, because although the rents are high, mortgage rates are still high, stamp duties are high for landlords with second, third, fourth, fifth properties. So it's not an easy market to do that either, to be fair, isn't it? We're finding that if landlords are needing to sell, and there are quite a few, unfortunately, that they are giving notice to their tenants to sell a vacant property, and the tenants are then struggling to find, because there's just not enough availability.
So the rental market continues to be difficult, both for, I mean, it's great for landlords from the point of view of the level of rents, but the whole situation continues to be turbulent and difficult. And we are seeing a contraction, which is not good, ahead of any changes coming in with the renters reform bill that's still being bounced around and tweaked and changed and what have you. Having said that, the sales side of things has started with an absolute boom.
Absolutely. Literally, I think the first day back in January, we were inundated with valuation requests, take-ons. I think January was actually the biggest month for take-ons that we've had in about 3 years.
Yeah.
Even though the market has been crazy, January has sort of superseded any of our expectations, and stock was just coming onto the market.
And selling.
So February was a really good month for selling that January stuff, and it's continued to come on the market. So there's lots of availability, lots of properties on the market, lots of buyers out there. The difficulty that you've got as a seller is there's so much more competition now. So whereas a couple of years ago, when we were experiencing the high value levels, there was not a lot of stock. So which obviously self-drove prices. Now, for example, you know, where you had sort of 4 beds available at the time, now you've got probably 24 available. So for each buyer, they've got 24 properties to choose from. So it really means that you've got to be price sensitive.
So we are kind of in a flux from what has been a very seller driven market. And it is becoming very buyer driven. So we're seeing that kind of shift around again, and that will naturally adjust prices a bit. And the price sensitivity, I think, is the absolute key, and the thing that people need to, if you're thinking of selling your property, this is not the market to test. If you actually want to sell, there are very, very small margins, which we're discovering, you know, the difference of a property being priced $5,000 more than a competitor will stop it from selling. It's really, really difficult. And this is one of those occasions where, when you've got the agent sat in front of you, you kind of need to challenge what they're telling you. Like, you're telling me that price, where has that come from? Because the only way to move forward in a market like this is evidence-led.
Absolutely. Absolutely, because that's what the lenders valuers will use. They have to use that. They have to use comparable evidence, and if the evidence isn't there, they simply won't lend. The properties will be downvalued. So it really, really is now more than ever important to make sure your price is right.
And the other thing that I've certainly been coming across is that there are prices being built on not correct information. So
2022 information,
or even early. Not all agents adjusted to the changing market in 2023.
Yeah.
So we are still seeing valuations that are kind of following the trajectory that started in 2020. And so they're kind of building on almost false figures. So what we're watching is, I don't know, a property that's been on the market at 260, didn't sell at 260, perhaps hasn't even sold, but that's being used as the bedrock for a valuation for today. So they're adding, I don't know, 10% onto that 260 figure, which was wrong in the first place. And we're not seeing a 10% growth at the moment. So what we're seeing is prices that are escalating still, but they're built on a false bedrock. And it's a really difficult thing, this, because land registry is still behind.
Absolutely.
So when you're actually looking at comparables, the best comparables are the ones where we've got the land registry sold data available to us that tells us, okay, well, it was marketed at 260, it sold for 250. And that information is probably about a year behind, isn't it?
Yeah, in some cases they're about 12, between 8 and 12 months, I believe, at the moment.
So it makes that difficult because then you're working on it was marketed at 260 and it sold, but actually it didn't sell for that. So this is when you kind of have to have some knowledge of the market. And, we've sold quite a few bits in the last few years. So we've got our own kind of knowledge of the market built on our own personal experiences of what's been going on. And I think that's a real crux of it. So when people are being presented with prices and comparables, they need to understand how valuable the comparable was. So did it sell? Is there any sold information? And that sort of thing. So it is, because it is so price sensitive, and we have to be so careful of the advice that we're giving at the moment.
Absolutely.
Because the market's good, except.
Yeah. So it's good. It's buoyant. The prices are still much higher than they were pre-COVID, but we hit the peak of price in, I would say, June, July, August 2022. So if the comparables that people are using are around about that time, then in my opinion and our experience, they are slightly higher then than they would be now. We haven't experienced a drop in the market necessarily, but 2023, as I said earlier, it was a definite shakedown, and it definitely brought the market back to some kind of reality. And that reality looks good. Like I say, it's still much better than it was pre-COVID, so 2019, 2020.
And better so far than last year.
Absolutely.
Last year was stop start. It was, coming out of the back end of last year, we were holding our breath a little bit, thinking, okay, are we about to hit a crash?
Yeah.
Or a serious adjustment, perhaps. Wasn't clear at all coming out of the back end of last year.
It was very uncertain last year. And I think buyers had so much uncertainty. Mortgage rates were up, interest rates. Nobody kind of knew what was happening. So everyone was sitting tight. And so, 2023 was definitely the year for a
transition, wasn't it? Yes. Like a transition,
Yeah, absolutely. But again, a really important factor to remember is if you're selling and buying in the same market, it's all relevant. It's, if you're selling for £10,000 less than you think you might have got in 2022, chances are you're going to be buying for £10,000 less than you would have been in 2022. So it's all relative. And it's really important to remember that.
If you're upsizing.
Yeah. The percentage is going to be much higher.
Absolutely right.
Yeah.
So the bigger properties there are more of them on the market than I can
absolutely
remember seeing in years and years. And so they're sticking. So the negotiation margins are potentially better.
Well, it brings me back to what we were saying before, because there's so much more choice for people.
Yeah,
so buyers are sort of like, oh, okay, well, I can have that one at 350, or I can have that one at 350, or I can have that one at 350.
Yeah.
Why don't we offer on them all and see which one's willing to give me the best deal?
And that's another thing we're seeing is people,
definitely.
buyers bidding on multiple properties.
Yeah, just to see which one
they can get the price they want
to
spend.
Yeah,
which is also an interesting phenomenon, and one again we haven't seen for quite a period of time, I don't think.
Long time.
Yeah. It's not necessarily good though, is it?
It's not great, but it's important to be honest.
Yeah.
You know, it's important to be honest with our future clients, our vendors, because it's factual, it's happening. Again, you know, there's no negatives here. I don't think it's a negative market at all. It's just being realistic.
Yeah.
You can see yourself what is on the market around your property, and you can pitch yourself where you think you're going to be. Oh, actually, if I go on at 350, I'm going to be next to a much bigger property and much in a nicer location.
Yeah.
So actually, I'm probably not there. And it's just about being realistic and knowing where you're going to be placed on that Rightmove listing, because that's what the buyers are going to see.
And the other thing to bear in mind is that if you're using one of these sort of online valuation tools, the algorithms are out at the moment for the majority of the time. So if you are, because it works on a trajectory, so it's assuming all things remain equal and the trajectory has remained the same. So what we're seeing is, because some of our research facilities actually pops up with what it's guessing the price is, and we often sit there and go, "Ooh, where's that come from?" And we can see where it's come from if the trajectory was continuing, but that's not the case.
Yeah.
So be very careful if you're kind of on the very early stages of thinking about selling your property and you're planning your next move and mortgages and all that kind of thing, that those algorithms 80% of the time are off.
Yeah.
And
comparable. Look at evidence, look at local evidence, look at similar properties to yours in that local area. That is your absolute key to pinpointing the right valuation for your property. Definitely. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, we're just hoping that the year continues the way that it's started. I mean, we're in April now, and it's just continued to go really good. Lots more stock coming on. Buyers are out there for them. Be a little bit more patient than you've had to be for the last couple of years. Things are taking a little bit longer.
Yeah.
But again, just, you know, you will get there. You will definitely get there. There's a lot of people. And also, sorry, one more thing that I would say is really important is, in the last few years, we've had lots of vendors that have just said they're on the market. I don't want to view with anybody that's not proceedable. If they're not under offer, if they're not sold, if they're not cash, I don't want them to view. Fine. In this market, I would say if they want to view, let them view, because I've had so many properties. I had one in particular that springs to mind that came on the market, loads of interest. I had 5 people go on the market to buy that property. So already you've got 5 really good chances there that you've sold.
Yeah.
One of them sold, they bought that house, you know. So let people view, because you don't know, somebody that's been on the market for 3 months isn't necessarily a better buyer for you than somebody that could go on the market tomorrow and sell the next day. So be open, let them view, increase your chances of selling. And that's honestly the best advice that I could give right now, I think.
Yeah. Hope that was useful or helpful or informative or something.
Give us a call, pop us an email. We'd love to sell your home. We'd love to help you buy your next home. Give us a call.